For over 2 decades, millions of us have watched Judge Judy Shineland do her thing in small claims court. But if you really pay attention, you'll see it's about way more than who owes who a few $100. Her courtroom is this incredible daily masterclass in human behavior, in conflict, and really in the simple, unwritten rules that kind of govern our lives.
You're doing a fast dance. You've probably heard her say it, right? It's one of her classics. It's what she says when someone is dodging, weaving, and just trying to talk their way around a simple, inconvenient truth. And that core idea, just cutting through all the noise to get to what's real, well, that's the foundation for everything we're about to break down.
So here's what we're going to do. We've boiled down literally thousands of cases into a really powerful 3-part rule book for life. First, we'll set the stage in the courtroom of common sense. Then, we'll dive into her 3 absolute non-negotiables: don't lie, a deal's a deal, and why service is everything. And finally, we'll deliver the ultimate verdict.
All right, so let's get into it. We're looking right past all the legal jargon, past the gavel. What we're doing here is pulling out these incredible life lessons from decades of arguments about bad haircuts and broken promises. Think of it as a simple guide for navigating your own day-to-day conflicts.
Okay, so this is it. Rule number 1. This is the absolute non-negotiable bedrock of Judge Judy's entire world. Just tell the truth. Because as we're about to see, the second you get caught in a lie, doesn't matter how big or small, your whole case, and more importantly, your credibility, just completely falls apart.
Let's look at a perfect example: Thomas versus Wharton. The situation is pretty simple. An ex-girlfriend is suing her ex-boyfriend for a $1,300 loan she gave him to buy a car. But his defense? He claims the money wasn't a loan at all. It was a gift. And boom, here's where his whole story just unravels. See, in his written answer, he totally admits he took the money from her, calling it a gift. But then, in court, he tries to spin a different story, claiming, "I paid cash for my car." Judge Judy spots the flaw immediately. Wait a second, how can you pay cash for a car with money you say was a gift for that specific car? The two stories just don't add up. They completely contradict each other.
And this is the real takeaway. Judge Judy's reaction says it all. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the insult of being lied to so clumsily. She's not just mad about the lie, she's irritated that he thinks she's dumb enough to fall for it. Once you're caught, it poisons everything else you say. Your credibility is shot, you've lost.
So that leads us perfectly into rule number 2, which is all about accountability. In Judge Judy's world, it's simple. Your word is your bond. It doesn't matter if it's a signed contract or just a verbal promise. Once you make a deal, you're expected to see it through, period.
So check this out, the case of Yuan versus Armbar. Here we have a divorced couple. They verbally agreed they would split the cost of their son's 2-year karate program. So the mother goes ahead and signs the contract, totally relying on the father's promise that he'd pay his half.
But then, just 10 months in, poof, the father just stops paying. He says he wants to redirect his focus and resources somewhere else. Judge Judy's response? An order to pay this exact amount, $1,910.75. That is his half of the remaining contract that he tried to just walk away from.
And here's the key principle, right? It's about reliance. His ex-wife was legally on the hook for the full amount because she trusted his promise. His personal decision to change his priorities doesn't magically make his financial obligation to her disappear. As Judge Judy makes crystal clear, you can't just say, "I changed my mind" in the middle of a deal. A deal is a deal. And this rule isn't just for big written contracts. It applies to those quick, on-the-spot handshake deals too. In another case, a woman accepted this much, $200, right there on the scene for some car damage. She took the cash, signed a little release. Later, she finds out the repairs are going to be over $3,000. But it was too late. She accepted the deal. That was it. Case closed. All right, our final rule. This one moves out of personal promises and into the world of business. And honestly, the lesson here is so valuable. Delivering the product or service is really only half the job. How you respond when a customer has a problem, that is what truly defines your business.
Okay, so picture this. A case called Juergens versus Mirror Salon. A customer gets her hair cut and colored, and it looks totally fine in the salon's soft lighting. But when she gets home, under natural light, she's horrified. She sees these obvious, unsightly purple streaks in her hair. So she calls the salon, she's upset, and she needs an immediate fix before she has to go to work on Monday.
And this is where you can just see the whole thing crumble. The customer calls, it's urgent. The receptionist just takes the message, no callback. An hour later, the customer is getting nervous, the salon is about to close, so she calls again. The stylist finally gets on the phone, but just says she's booked solid until Tuesday. At that point, the customer feels completely blown off, so she goes somewhere else to get it fixed and stops payment on the check. The real issue here wasn't just the purple hair, it was the total, complete failure of customer service.
And this is what's so brilliant about her ruling. Judge Judy actually said, look, mistakes happen. Sometimes hair color just grabs in a weird way. So she didn't make the salon pay for the fix at the other place. But, and this is the key, she completely dismissed their countersuit for the original payment. And why? Because their terrible customer service meant they hadn't earned the right to get paid. Simple as that.
So where does that leave us? We've seen flimsy lies, we've seen broken promises, and we've seen the very real cost of just plain bad service. These aren't just quirky stories on TV. They're patterns of behavior that have real-world consequences. So now, it's time for the ultimate verdict.
It really all boils down to these three incredibly powerful ideas. 1. Tell the truth. Your credibility is priceless, and once it's gone, it is gone for good. 2. A deal is a deal. Your word is your bond, so honor your commitments. And 3. Service is everything. How you respond to a problem is almost always more important than the problem itself. And you see how each of these rules points back to one central theme: personal accountability.
And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. In all of these disputes and, in our own lives too, the arguments seem like they're about the money. But as all these cases show, the real damage, the thing that's so much harder to fix, it isn't the dented fender or the unpaid bill. It's the broken trust.